Good morning, folks. Welcome to an OCC Queensland Daily Weather Up. Today, the 14th of the 2nd, 2023. My name's Chris Nitzo. This update brought to you by our major sponsor, TownsvilleSheds.com. Check them out if you're in the market for a shed-safe accredited shed. Two major weather systems operating in the Queensland region today. We've got an upper-level trough and a surface trough combination across southeast, central east Queensland, resulting in widespread instability and the potential for some strong, maybe even some dangerous thunderstorm activity across the southeast central east region, particularly the southeast region around the Sunshine Coast, Wide Bay and Burnett district. And in the north, we've got a low that's on the move now on the north to the north-northeast of Groot Island, tracking in an east-southeasterly direction this morning, expected to continue to tracking east-southeast, and we're expecting to see significant rainfall across the Cape region, gradually shifting southwards towards the north tropical coast over the next 24 to 48 hours. Already this morning, we've seen some convection across the far northern parts of southeast Queensland and the far southern parts of central east Queensland. And of course, we're seeing widespread rainfall across parts of Cape York Peninsula. The environment across the southeast today, a little bit complicated. We've got a surface trough just inland of the coastline, extending up into southern central and southern central eastern Queensland. And then we've also got another trough system here across the coastline around the Sunshine Coast. So where these two troughs meet, around that Sunshine Coast, Wide Bay, Burnett district, that could be a real hotspot of convective development right in there today. Of course, our low pressure system is expected to be drifting towards the southeast today, and the expectation is that we're gradually going to see a lot of rainfall across that eastern parts of the Gulf of Carpentaria, southwestern parts of the Cape York Peninsula region, as that low starts to squeeze the air on the eastern side of it. And you'll notice just at the end of this forecast in terms of the low-level winds, we're just starting to get a squeeze effect happening here in the North Tropical Coast. We're going to see some very heavy rainfall on the North Tropical Coast over the next few days. If you want to know more about that longer-term stuff, head over to join.ozcyclonechasers.com.au and check out our subscription options for longer-term in-depth forecast updates. In the meantime, if we take a look at today's activity, we can see this rapid destabilisation of southeast Queensland ahead of the surface trough inland and ahead of the, or in and around the surface trough on the coastline. As we go 9, 10, 11, 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 p.m, you can see some very unstable conditions are developing through the afternoon and evening across southeast Queensland and southern central eastern Queensland, and then pushing directly at the coastline through the evening and night time hours. Some instability is maintained overnight, so we might still see some convection occurring across the near coastal regions of northern southeast Queensland as well. But a lot of the unstable air further to the west out here, too much dry air coming in over the top of it, which will make life very difficult for any convection overnight tonight into tomorrow in that region. Right, so what does that look like from convective rainfall perspective? We can see there's quite a bit of convective rainfall across southeast Queensland. There is potential for some very heavy localised falls with showers and thunderstorms. Of course, with an upper-level trough involved, there's always the potential for strong winds and also for large hail with these systems. And you can see quite clear evidence there that they're pushing directly at the coastline. There shouldn't be any of them sort of dying on the coast's doorstep. They should be able to get right through the coast and offshore through the nighttime hours. As I mentioned, overnight, just the potential there for some overnight convection down in the southeast into tomorrow morning. And tomorrow, the focus of convection a little bit further north up towards the Capricornia. So just keep an eye out for Bureau of Meteorology storm warnings today across southeast Queensland. Right, now we talked a lot about the southeast, but there's way more happening up here in the northern parts. We've got widespread convective rainfall. We've got widespread convergence patterns going on here between northwesterlies, northeasterlies, northeasterlies, northerlies, northeasterlies, southeasterlies. We've got all sorts of weird and wonderful things happening here with winds being squeezed in and creating heavy rainfall. We can see widespread areas around Cape York Peninsula today with heavy rainfall potentially occurring in many of those areas. We're gradually shifting that further southwards into the North Tropical Coast, as I mentioned, later on overnight tonight into tomorrow, as the low pressure system from the Western Gulf continues tracking southeast and brings down the monsoon trough further southwards into far north Queensland as we go tomorrow. And we are going to see some very heavy falls of rain developing in northeast Queensland later on down the track. And they'll kick off tomorrow, so we'll talk about them in tomorrow's update. Or just remember, we've got a subscription service that's already talking about that. Right, so rainfall between now and tomorrow morning when we talk widespread rainfall across Cape York Peninsula. You can see that extending down to probably the northern parts of the Gulf country by tomorrow morning. The expectation also that we'll start to see some heavy falls developing in northeast Queensland tomorrow morning. And just remember, those showers and thunderstorms here could produce locally very heavy falls. Not everyone will get storms, of course, as we know, but there will be quite a few around. So hopefully you do get one, and hopefully it's not too strong. But as I say, make sure you keep an eye on Bureau of Meteorology warnings throughout the afternoon for convective activity across southeast and southern central eastern Queensland. From a surface wind perspective, ahead of the surface trough on the coast, we're expecting strong northerly winds, and behind the surface trough on the coast, we're expecting moderate to fresh southerly winds or southeasterly winds. And the expectation here is that surface trough is going to be around southeast Queensland. It's best to avoid the waters because not only do you have to contend with the trough system, but you've also got to contend with storms, and those storms are likely to be packing some damaging winds as well. So just be aware of that. If you're on the water, you probably shouldn't be down here in southern Queensland. Of course, northern Queensland, we're watching on the south side of the low as it pushes in a southeasterly direction. We're watching for winds around 25 to 30 knots on the southern side of that system, 30 to 35 closer to the NT side of the Gulf, but very strong winds there. So once again, you want to be avoiding offshore waters in the southwestern Cape and the Gulf country. And the monsoon way up north here is creating some pretty strong northwesterly winds up there in the northwestern Cape York Peninsula region. Sustained winds at 15 to 20 with squally gusts with showers and thunderstorms at 30 to 35s. Have a wonderful day. Talk to you tomorrow.